Royal Ranger leaders, here are some of my thoughts on how to make your Royal Ranger ministry successful in your church. Number one, is your Royal Ranger ministry in alignment with your pastor's vision for discipleship? Now, I say just discipleship because really evangelism is part of discipleship. Discipleship is the primary goal. And that's the primary goal of our ministry, is to disciple young boys into Christian men. That's the reason why we put them together. The reason why we take the boys and the Christian men, put them together in the same space with rules, structure, and a goal and a common purpose and supervision, because the best person to teach a boy to be a man is a man. And the best person to teach a boy to be a Christian man is a Christian man. That's the purpose of Royal Rangers. Is this in alignment with your pastor's vision for discipleship? How does Royal Rangers fit into the church's overall goal of discipleship? And that's one thing we need to ask ourselves and make sure our Royal Ranger ministry is doing that. Now, how do we get to that point? Number two, do you have time with your pastor? Do you know what their discipleship vision is? You need to have time with your pastor. I know a lot of Royal Ranger ministries are put under the supervision of the children's pastor, and normally the children's pastor of a church or the person who's in charge of supervising children's ministry is well-meaning, but one of the primary goals of most children's ministries is just to keep the kids mildly entertained while the adults are in service. And that's not a bad purpose of it. They try their best to disciple, but oftentimes they're overwhelmed with the number of kids. They're overwhelmed with a shortage of volunteers, and they have a really hard time really making hard discipleship goals. Royal Rangers ministry is really meant for small group discipleship. It's tailor-made for it. That's what it's designed for. So do you have time with your pastor? Even though your ministry might be under the children's director or children's pastor, get some time and sit with the senior pastor of your church and really find out what their discipleship vision is. And if your Royal Ranger ministry does not report directly to the person in charge of men's ministries of your church or report directly to the pastor, I'd strongly encourage you to petition for that. Pastors, if you're watching this, I strongly recommend your Royal Ranger ministry reports directly to you, because it's doing one of the most important jobs in the church. Discipleship is the most important job of the church, but I would argue that one of the most important parts of discipleship is discipling the men, because if we can disciple the men, they in turn are going to turn around and they're going to disciple their families. And that really seems to be the biblical model, where men are the head of the household. So Royal Ranger leaders, get in alignment with your pastor's vision for discipleship. And number three, does your Royal Rangers ministry, is it tailored to the families of your church? What kind of families do you have in your church? What kind of boys do you have coming to your Royal Rangers ministry? If you have a church filled with strong Christian, very functional families, then you're already starting with a huge advantage. You're already starting from a very, very strong foundation that you can build off of. Now, if you're starting with a church full of families that they may not have a lot of strong Christian discipleship at home, you're starting with a very different format. You really have to build that foundation. And remember this, you don't need to get every boy the gold medal of achievement. That's great, but in reality, most boys are not going to get it. And in fact, that's fine. Not every boy is going to get the gold medal of achievement. And I say that's great. Many of our boys are going to put a lot more time and energies into other pursuits, into other extracurricular activities. And that's fantastic. Why? Because they're going to be a Christian witness in those places. And that's a fantastic place for them to be. Remember, you don't need to get every boy in your church to go from Ranger kids all the way up to Expedition Rangers. I met with a Ranger leader recently where they were very concerned that their Adventure Rangers were very quickly transitioning from Adventure Rangers into youth group and not doing anything with Expedition Rangers. And I just encourage this leader not to worry about that. You know, if the boys were completing the Adventure Ranger program and then they weren't continuing with Expedition Rangers, but they were going to youth group, I'd say, take a look at these boys. Are they well discipled? Are they living a Christian lifestyle? Are they following Jesus? And if they are, no worries. You did your job. You got them to where they needed to be. They're now functioning Christ followers as teenagers, as young men. You did a fantastic job, and encourage them. Just stay in touch with these boys. If you have a heart for them still, stay in touch with them, follow up with them. So ask yourselves these three questions, leaders. What is your church's overall vision for discipleship? Does your Royal Ranger ministry match that vision for discipleship? And finally, how is your ministry discipling young boys into men? Good luck out there.